State Representatives Justin Pizzulli and Kevin Ritter, welcome to Message from the House.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
We were just talking about how to pronounce Appalachia. Appalachia. Oh my gosh.
The saying is, if you say Appalachia, we'll throw an Appalachia. So that's how you remember to say Appalachia.
Apples. Okay. Fall apples. What are your favorite kinds of apples, really quickly? I'm a gala girl.
Yeah, I'm a Honey Crisp.
Honey Crisp. Yep, that's a good one.
I guess it is apple season.
Yeah.
Definitely Red Delicious. I like them real sweet and juicy. I don't want anything sour.
There we go. All three different flavors. That should preview well what this podcast is about. We are talking about a different region of the state today. I'm very excited to learn more. Representative Pizzulli, we will start with you. Talk me through a little bit about your background and your district.
So the 90th District of Ohio, I proudly represent Scioto County, Adams County, and half of Brown County. It's the most beautiful area in the entire world to me. I decided to stay down there a long time ago and plant my roots down on the picturesque foothills of Appalachia, how we pronounce it. And Scioto County is home to Speaker Vern Rife, who this building is named after. So we have a really rich history in politics. We have the Ohio River. We have right on is actually the home to the Portsmouth Spartans, who are now the Detroit Lions. We were talking about football before this. We had the first NFL night game took place, and we also had the Iron Man game, which they played. The Portsmouth Spartans played the Green Bay Packers in actually a baseball stadium before the Super Bowl was even a thing. So we have our flood wall murals and the best darn steak restaurant called the Ritter that I've ever been to. So we've got a rich history down in Scioto County. In Adams County, also probably even more Appalachian, some of the best God-fearing people I have ever met in my entire life. Fun fact, actually a pretty large Amish community. A lot of people don't think about a lot of Amish being down in southern Ohio. And the county seat is West Union, which reminds me a lot of Mayberry. I don't think there's even a bar in the town. It's just a beautiful little town of a very strong community. We're also home to the Great Serpent Mound, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In my mind, should be an eighth wonder of the world. And lastly, in Brown County, I actually split that county with Representative Byrd.
Okay.
He has the west side. I have the east side, and I have Sardinia down to Ripley. Ripley, Ohio is an absolutely beautiful town. It is kind of back in the 1800s, a old sort of Wild West town in a way, and home to John Rankin, who is a very famous, sort of like the grandfather of the abolitionist movement. And Rep. Fisher and I actually have a bill to name a statue after Rankin here at the State House. So as you can tell, I'm very passionate not only about my district, but every single city, every hill, and every single person, because we all have a story to tell down there.
That was amazing. You really sold it there, too. Lots of different, things to check out, too. So thank you so much for painting that picture.
When you're down in the area, come see us.
Yes. I was in Jackson around the last fall range. So around the Apple Festival time. Yeah, I knew that's a big one over there.
Fun fact, there's no orchards left in Jackson County.
Oh,
They still have an apple festival.
okay, the history.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's like the Circleville Pumpkin Show, right? I'm sure they do grow pumpkins around there, but great. Thank you, Representative. And Rep. Ritter, same with you. Talk to me a little bit about you and your district.
Yeah, I represent the 94th. That's made up of Washington County, Meigs County, and then 10 of the 14 townships in Athens County. I didn't grow up like Rep. Pizzulli in that area. I grew up just north of Detroit, but I've been there for 25 years. So I tell folks I got there as soon as I could. The 94th goes all the way back to the founding of our country. It's known as the starting point. When the government couldn't pay soldiers at the end of the Revolutionary War, they gave them land grants. George Washington had surveyed that area, so he was familiar with it. So in our little cemetery in Marietta, the Mound Cemetery, we have more Revolutionary War officers buried than any other cemetery in the country. So there's an awful lot of history there. A lot of hardworking folks, a lot of church-going folks, a lot of building trades, unions, just wonderful people. My wife and I traveled there and just fell in love with the area. I can't imagine living anywhere else.
That is wonderful. And today we are talking about the newly formed Appalachian Caucus. Why start this caucus? And, talk me through what your goals are for it and what you're envisioning for it.
Well, we started the Appalachian Caucus because we're going to be stronger together. Down in our neck of the woods, we have a very Scots-Irish background. What does that mean? It means that we have a strong sense of independence. You leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. We'll call it a day. We'll leave everybody alone. I can do whatever I want. I'm independent. It's that type of mindset. But as you can imagine, in order to work collectively and to get us more resources and more progress as a region, we're going to have to work together as a community. So that means building a coalition of state representatives, business owners, constituents to all come up to Columbus to fight for the issues that we think are important to our region.
How has the outreach been or the response been to this caucus? Talk about, how many members are on board, Rep Ritter.
Sure, sure. We've had a lot of interest. We've just had 2 meetings.
Great.
There are roughly 15 individuals that represent what we consider Appalachia. The federal government says there are 32 counties that make up Appalachia. Ask any Appalachian, they're going to tell you it's a much smaller area than that. We've had about 10 reps that have come to our first 2 meetings. As I said, a lot of interest. We're just excited to be able to share what that region has to offer with the rest of the state. We haven't always gotten the intense interest of folks in Columbus, so we've tried to be very intentional about inviting down statewides, the governor, the lieutenant governor. So we are getting a lot more attention.
And I think you brought up a good point there, the region. Could you just talk me through what encompasses that region?
Sure, how would you define it?
Well, I would define it as sort of back in we're a beautiful area, but we've had our challenges, right? Ever since back in the 90s, we've had terrible trade policies like NAFTA, where, as Ross Perot told us and tried to warn us on national TV, you would hear what he called a giant sucking sound of jobs. And that's exactly what happened in our region, is that a lot of jobs left, moved out of the area, went to China, and Portsmouth was once the shoe capital of the world. And so we were left with, unfortunately, a lot of people who were moving out of the area. Back in the day, there was the reason why Marietta is the oldest city in Ohio, and you had these beautiful, big, booming, busting cities like Portsmouth and Ripley is because of our natural resources along the river to create trade, commerce, and development. And so I think the goal of the Appalachian Caucus is one thing we've tried to do is have create a bill to establish the Ohio River Commission, because we understand how important economic development is to the region, why those cities are there to begin with, right? So we're trying to advertise that out through the rest of Ohio.
When you were talking about the caucus, you said something that struck me. You said the future of Ohio runs right through Appalachia. And I know Rep. Pizzulli kind of touched on that the natural resources are a big part of that area. What did you mean by that quote?
As you said, we've been blessed with just abundant resources. We've got the rivers in my district. We've got the confluence of 2 rivers, the Muskingum and the Ohio. An incredible amount of trade flows up and down those rivers. If you sit at one of our local restaurants, the Levy House, you can watch those barges go by one after another. But we also have oil and gas, which is incredibly important. There's a data center that's going to break ground in my district. Part of the reason they've decided to come there is they're going to produce their own energy with natural gas. So we're literally sitting on one of the most rich deposits of oil and gas in the entire world. So we're getting an awful lot of attention from industry at this point.
And we want to see, I think, as a caucus, a level playing field in Ohio. What do I mean by that? If you look at the infrastructure of Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati, other parts of Ohio, and you compare it to the infrastructure of Appalachia, Ohio, it's really sad. It's like we're playing football. If Columbus was a sports team, we were talking about football earlier, and Portsmouth or Marietta was a team, and we were playing, we would be playing with no cleats. We'd be playing with bare feet and no jerseys on. So what I mean by that is we need the same level of access to infrastructure. In Adams County, where I represent, we have no natural gas. There are many communities with no sewer. They rely on septic tanks. My mom is only in her 50s, and until she was in high school, she used an outhouse. So there are real infrastructure challenges. We don't have an interstate that runs through Appalachia. And so until the state of Ohio invests real money into broadband internet and real functional infrastructure, we don't have a level playing field to be able to create a future like what's happening in central Ohio right now. And that's why I'm so passionate about starting the Appalachian Caucus.
And aside from the legislation that you had mentioned, are there any other bills floating around that are targeting these areas to improve?
Yeah, let me tell you about one that I dropped yesterday. It doesn't yet have a number. The Wayne National Forest. There are 40,000 acres of the Wayne just in Washington County alone. That federal land, of course, is non-taxable by the local population. We get what's called a payment in lieu of taxes. The federal government values that land at only $600 an acre for the purposes of determining what that payment should be. It's a formula that's outdated by half a century. So it really hamstrings the local government, the local schools. Um, that's something we're trying to change. But the legislation that I dropped yesterday is regarding oil and gas royalties from the Wayne National Forest. There are producing wells there, so the well owners pay royalties to the federal government. Federal law says that half of that stays with the federal government, half of it comes back to the state of Ohio. That's to be distributed to the counties. Well, in doing research for the bill, we determined that that money has gone to ODNR, but we can't track it after that. As far as we can tell, that money has never been paid out to what they call the county of origin. So this bill makes that process clearer. I'm hopeful that we're going to see those monies begin to flow to places like Washington County, and not in my district, but also Monroe County.
That's incredible. How did you catch that in the first place? Was it a constituent that brought it to you or just living in the area?
You know, it was an awful lot of research by a number of different people. I don't remember specifically who caught that, but we've been out to Washington, D.C., to the Bureau of Land Management several times in doing the research. I'm pretty sure we're owed some money, and I'm hopeful we're going to get it.
Yeah, that is incredible. Thank you for explaining that, Pizzulli.
And then I had a bill in the transportation budget that would it appropriated $1.5 million to study a I-73 interstate corridor project. So this is a project that would start in upstate Michigan, and the interstate would go all the way to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Specifically in Ohio, it would be from Toledo to Columbus, down to my district and into the border of Huntington, West Virginia region. But like I mentioned, if you build it, they will come. You have to have the infrastructure. So I was very passionate about that bill. And then as Portsmouth, Ohio was the ground zero for the opioid epidemic. And if you took every single person in my district in a room and you asked them to raise their hand, how many people have lost a friend or family member to the opioid epidemic? 99.9% of people would raise their hand that they have been affected. Yet we have spent as a country over $10 trillion to try to fix this problem, and we're getting very small results. The rehabs, the recovery centers tell me they have less than a 10% success rate. And so what I'm looking for in our state is innovative methods that don't follow the status quo. And so that's why we passed in the budget a study on ibogaine, which is a new plant-based medicine with over a 75% study of a success rate with one single dose to take away all of the cravings and symptoms. It's changed after receiving a dose how someone with opioid use disorder even thinks about the drug. And so, unfortunately, you have to go out of country right now to receive the treatment. But I'm hoping that we can study this and with this working group that we've established to take a good hard look at not only how we save Medicaid, but we help people get the best care possible. I believe that we could save so many more lives rather than the same old status quo that we've been doing for quite some time in our current model.
Do you feel like you were supported? And if not, how could the government better support this region?
Well, we're very thankful for the support that the speaker gave us. Rep. Pizzulli went to him early in this GA and explained our idea to bring this caucus back together. It's existed informally in the past, but we thought it was important to get the speaker's approval. And he stepped right up. He said, "Yeah, I think that's a good idea. You guys go ahead and run with that." But we've also seen support beyond just that government support. Marietta College on November 10th is going to do a ribbon cutting for what's called the Center for Appalachian Innovation. And our caucus will work closely with them. I think the best way to describe that, it's going to be sort of a think tank at Marietta College that will study Appalachian issues, make policy suggestions, work hand in hand with reps like us so we can move the region forward.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah.
Rep. Pizzulli.
Yeah, the speaker and the leadership has been very supportive of the caucus. Like I said, we're just going to be stronger together. What I would like to see from the rest of the state is rather than, right now we've just been painting the car, but we need to roll back our sleeves, crack open the hood, and change out the engine in Appalachia. We are very thankful for the Appalachian Community Grant funding, which is going to be funding some projects that were truly only unimaginable, only something that we could dream about. There's no chance that we could have ever funded those kind of projects. Governor DeWine helped make those projects possible, but what we also need to not forget is we have serious infrastructure problems, and so many of the local officials provided the feedback to me that, well, this is nice, but our roads are falling apart, and how are we going to pay for the maintenance on these, keeping up with some of these projects, right? Which is I think a valid point. But now that we're investing in sort of these big revolutionary projects across our state to bring people down to the region and to attract growth, we also need to peel back the onion a little bit and get down to the core, and that is investing in water, sewer, broadband, natural gas, all of those great things that so much Central Ohio, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati has access to. Let's give that access to every single corner of the state.
If you don't mind, let me expand on that and maybe help illustrate, excuse me, the issue that Appalachia faces. I was a county commissioner for 6 years, and when we talked about development, what people always told us is, though, there are grant monies available, but budgets are so tight in our part of the state that we never had the match money, or we never had the money to do the study that was a prerequisite to applying for that grant. It was only when the ARPA dollars came along that we had some disposable income that we could put ourselves in a position to compete. I know at least in the 94th that we're now competing very, very well because we had that influx of cash.
Yeah, some of our local townships are, many of them, if you look at a map of incorporated townships in Ohio, Southeast Ohio is completely unzoned and unincorporated. So they don't have the staff to create grant writers. I think many times Appalachian Ohio benefits the least from grants because we don't have someone full time in an office, you know, writing those grants and things. And just to put it into perspective, where I went to high school, I graduated with 45 people. It's a small community, right? And actually, we're hearing a lot about property tax reform right now in our state, and how some schools are very, very wealthy. My school was very poor. We were just struggling to keep the lights on. Actually, the first day of class when I received my mom's, I'm sorry, I received a textbook, and I went to write my name in the bottom, and my mom's name was written on the top of the book.
Wow.
So it was 2 generations old. And then the building that I went to school in was built in 1900, and the third floor was condemned. And then we received hand-me-down desks from the prison across the street. Those were our new desks. And so, that is the reality that we're trying to convey to make sure that we don't adopt policies in Ohio that are necessarily one size fits all. We got to make sure that it's something that works for our 32 Appalachian counties and for Columbus and Cleveland and Cincinnati.
Wow. Did you ever find anything incriminating on those desks? I'm sorry, I'm perseverated on that.
I don't know if I'm allowed to use those words on this
Okay,
podcast.
wow, that's wow. No, thank you so much for explaining that, because I had said even before we started talking on here that being a Central Ohio girl, I've only been in that area a handful of times, either driving down south or in Jackson and Gallia and all of those places. So the Appalachian Caucus, working hard, right?
You got it.
Appalachia.
You got it. We trained you
See,
right.
perfect. I learned a lot here, including how to pronounce the dang area. So thank you both, Representative Justin Pizzulli and Representative Kevin Ritter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Quickly, we'll talk about our social media. You can follow us at the Ohio House GOP Caucus on Facebook, Ohio House _GOP on Instagram, and OHR GOP Caucus on Twitter. You can subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Gentlemen, thank you for making time. I know you have a busy day today, but I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.